Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Constellar Yugioh deck profile for post-Cyberstorm access. Already have done the Satellar Night update, so I figured with the new support that we got in the Cyberstorm access booster set, I'd focus on the probably going to be less played deck, the Constellar deck, that focuses on Xyz summoning, just like the Tellar Knights. A lot more people are just using the Tellar Knights for its meta consistency, I would say, compared to Constellars. That doesn't mean Constellars aren't a fun deck to use. I'm definitely a big fan of the Constellars with their playstyle as well, just being more of a hands-on experience with the actual Constellar monsters and the newer ones that we received from the newest booster set, and also being able to go into the plenty of different Constellar monsters we have, including cards like our Constellar Pleiades and all of the other ones like M7 and the different ranked ones we have to work with the new Constellar spells. Let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the Constellar main deck monsters. I run 3 copies of Constellar Polix. During the turn this card is normal summon. You can normal summon 1 Constellar monster in addition to your normal summoner set. You can only gain this effect once per turn, so it's the standard setup for another Constellar monster in your hand just to be normal summoned out, so you can go for your overlay play. You can even summon out another Constellar Polix, and all of the newer Tellar Knight monsters work very, very well with the deck as well, since they're all treated as Constellar cards. You can even additionally normal summon one of those monsters out onto the field also. I also run 3 copies of Constellar Sombre. With this card, you can only use each effect of Sombre once per turn. While this card's in your graveyard, if it was sent there this turn, you can normal summon 1 Constellar monster for 1 less tribute, or you can banish 1 Constellar monster from your graveyard, then target 1 Constellar monster in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. Also, this card gains the following effect. This turn, you can activate this effect, normal summon 1 Constellar monster. So you can use the banish of another Constellar monster to add 1 from your graveyard back to your hand, and additionally normal summon that one, setting up just as many of your plays as Pollux can do, using Sombra as an additional normal summon answer for the deck. For the new Tellar Knight monsters that are also counted as a Constellar, I'm running 3 copies of Tellar Knight Liren. With this card, it's always treated as a Constellar, so remember that as well, being able to banish off of cards like Sombre as well if need be from the graveyard. If a Tellar Knight or Constellar monster is normal summoned to your field except Tellar Knight Liren during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if this card is summoned, you can add 1 Tellar Knight spell from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Tellar Knight Liren once per turn. So you have the search for the new spell in the deck for our Tellar Knight option, being the Constellar Tellar Knight. So this could be your search to add to your hand with your Tellar Knight Liren, and then also just being an easy special summon to the hand on top of your normal summons, which I mentioned before with the Constellar monsters. I also run the 3 copies of Constellar Catechus. With this card, if you control a Constellar monster except Constellar Catechus, you can special summon this card from your hand. During the main phase, you can add 1 Constellar Spiral Trap from your deck to your hand. You will use the previous effects of Constellar Catechus once per turn, and a Constellar Xyz monster that has this card's material gains the effect if it was battling a light or dark monster before damage calc. You can banish that monster. So I would say Catechus has a little more consistency in the Constellar deck, just for the fact that the majority of all your monsters in this deck are considered Constellars, where in the Tellar Knight deck, or the Satellar Knight deck, you had to rely on summoning out cards like Tellar Knight Liren or any of the extra deck monsters that had Constellar in their card name to be able to special summon out Catechus to the field. For the last of the 3 ofs, I also run 3 copies of Constellar Caos. It cannot be used as synchro material, and up to twice per turn, you can target a Constellar monster on the field to activate one of these effects. You can increase its level by 1 or reduce its level by 1. So you can use your Constellar Caos as a normal summon, and then special summon out your Tellar Knight Liren, counting as a Constellar monster. You can then raise the level of Caos and the level of Liren, overlaying the 2 together to then go into your Constellar Pleiades, or you can even use the search power of your Constellar Liren to add your Constellar Tellar Knights to your hand, giving you the added play off of that spell, which I can show at the end of the video as well, just to add more and more Xyz materials onto one of your Constellar monsters. For some of the lower numbers for the monsters in the deck, I run 2 copies of Tellarknight Alteron, with this card being treated as a Constellar again, then just having a special summon play if a Tellarknight or Constellar monster is special summoned to your field, except Tellarknight Alteron, being able to special summon it from the graveyard. And then also with this card, for the rest of this turn, you're locked into Xyz monsters, but it really isn't that big of a lockdown in the deck. And when it's summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the number of light and dark Xyz monsters you control and destroy them. So with you having plenty of Constellar Xyz monsters in the extra deck, you can go for a good number of destruction cards off of Alteron as well. The only reason I'm running 2 in the deck also is to have different targets for the option of Small World as well. If it has to be one of the banished targets, I can use it with Small World and then get the other specific Constellar monster I may need. And also 2 copies of Constellar Sheraton, just for the added search power when banishing it off of your Tellarknight Constellar Catechus for the additional search of a Constellar monster from our deck to our hand. So we can even add more additional monsters, being that this is a Constellar deck thanks to our Sheraton. And the last of the main deck monsters being 2 copies of Photon Thrasher for the special summon play. And this card, you can even use it to go into cards like Tellarknight Constellar Catechus, just needing 2 or more level 4 monsters, and even some of the other cards like Constellar Omega that just need 2 level 4 light monsters to make it. That is it for the main deck monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. I run 2 copies of Constellar Tellarknights. A continuous spell, when it's activated, you can special summon 1 Tellarknight or Constellar monster from your hand or graveyard, and you can target a Tellarknight or Constellar Xyz monster you control and special summon from your extra deck 1 Tellarknight or Constellar Xyz monster with a different rank, using that monster as Xyz material you control, and it's treated as an Xyz summon and transfer the materials. This is one of the cards I said you can search off of Liren and then be able to use the additional overlay play with some of our other cards to get more and more materials onto a card we may have. I also run the 1 copy of Constellar Star Chart. Once per turn, when a Constellar Xyz monster is special summoned face up on your side of the field, you can draw 1 card. It's another search if you were to add a card off of your go-to setup, being able to have the search power with your Constellar Star Chart to then be able to have draw power as well on top of your other Constellar plays. For more of the generic spells, I run 3 copies of Small World, plenty of search options just by having the banish cost, thanks to Small World and all of the different light attribute monsters that we run in the deck, working with the same type, attribute, and level, and attack or defense as the banished monster. So more and more search options depending on which one we may want to add to our hand using this card. And I also run 3 copies of Fire Formation Tenki. So we have an additional search to go into our Constellar Cows. Like I said before, being a card that can help with the level increase and decrease, depending on what monster we may want to summon from the extra deck. For some of the one-ofs for the spells, I run 1 copy of Monster Reborn, 1 copy of Reinforcements of the Army, 1 Call by the Grave, 1 Foolish Burial, and the 1 Pot of Avarice, because we do go through a good number of monsters from the extra deck, so just being able to recycle them back to reuse again always comes in handy with Pot of Avarice. For the trap cards in the deck, I run 2 copies of Constellar Meteor. During this turn, this card is activated if an opponent's monster battles a Constellar monster and the opponent's monster is not destroyed. Shuffle it into the deck at the end of damage step. This gives your opponent an incentive to not want to attack into your Constellar monsters, because you can just activate this card and it just says during this turn this card is activated when it battles that Constellar monster. So then you have the play to shuffle it into the deck. It does not target, meaning your opponent will have to think of other ways to get around some of the Constellar monsters that you have on the field also. With the last of the traps just being 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, just as a hand trap option in the deck to stop any of your opponent's monster effects on the field, and being able to activate it on their turn as well if they went first and you have no cards on your field. That is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. I run 2 copies of Tellarknight Constellar Catechus. You need 2 more level 4 monsters. If it's Xyz summon, you can target 1 Tellarknight and or Constellar card in your graveyard, add them to your hand, and you can target and banish 1 Tellarknight or Constellar monster from your hand or deck, and detach 1 material from this card, and this card becomes the banished monster's effect that activated when it is normal summon. So being an effect when it's normal summon means you can banish cards like Constellar Pollux, and then when it was normal summon, being able to gain an additional normal summon of a Constellar monster onto the field, since Catechus will copy that normal summoned effect. And also with this play, you can only use each effect of Catechus once per turn, but you have the search power back from the graveyard and the additional copy effect for your Constellar monsters. I also just have the one copy of Pleiades in the deck. If you were to add additional copies, you can always reduce the number of Ptolemy M7 that I am running in the deck to include more copies of Pleiades, but just being a once per turn during either player's turn to detach an Xyz material, target a card on the field, and return the target to the hand. The fact that it's on your opponent's turn as well makes it one of the better plays to have multiple Xyz materials on Pleiades to use as well. I also run the one copy of Constellar Yugioh and one copy of Constellar Omega for the unaffected power of Spell and Traps for Omega, and the battle position change for your Constellar Yugioh. And also being different levels compared to Pleiades and your other monsters gives you options to go into these cards and then use your Tellarknight Constellars to overlay into an additional monster using them. I also run 3 copies of our Constellar Ptolemy M7. If you wanted to run an additional Pleiades, you can just reduce the number of M7 down to 2. But being able to overlay this card over any Constellar Xyz monster, if our opponent negates the effects of any of our other monsters, we can just overlay with M7 onto that monster and have an additional add back effect, whether it be from the graveyard or on the field back to the owner's hand. For more of the generic Xyz monsters as well, to work with the deck, I run the one copy of Stellar Knight Deltaros, just needing 3 level 4 monsters as a more destruction play to go into, and then being able to special summon a Tellarknight monster from our hand or deck when it's sent to the graveyard means we could summon out cards like Tellarknight Alteron and also cards like our Tellarknight Lyran back onto the field for us to use their own effects off of this Xyz monster. Also the one copy of Tellarknight Ptolemaeus and also the copy of Constellar Knight Diamond for the additional overlay for our other monsters using the Tellarknight monsters, which we do have a majority of, Constellars in the deck, but our Tellarknight Constellar Catechus also counts as one, so we can overlay into that card using our Constellar Tellarknight as well with this card. With our only link monsters in the deck being one copy of Lena the Light Charmer, one Hip Hoshinengen, and the one Nightmare Unicorn, just as additional options to go into. Some of the cards do lock us into Xyz plays, but it's nice to have these options, whether it be for recycle power or just the power up of our light attribute monsters on the field to begin with. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, as I said before, with the Constellar Chaos play and then the additional setup with our Tellarknight Lyran. If you have both of these cards in your hand, you can summon out your Constellar Chaos, and then since you summoned a Constellar monster via normal summon to your field, you can special summon this card from your hand onto the field as well, and then you can use Constellar Chaos to reduce the level of both of these cards. But before you do that, when it's summoned, you can add a Tellarknight spell from your deck to your hand, so you can add your Constellar Tellarknights, activating this card as well, and then using Chaos to reduce the level of both of you to 3, overlaying the 2 together, and then from there you can go into your Constellar Yugioh, and then having an additional special summon for your monster from your hand or graveyard with Tellarknights, and also with this card being able to target a Tellarknight or Constellar Xyz monster you control and special summon one Constellar Xyz monster with a different rank using that monster as material. So then you can use the Yugioh to then go into Pleiades on the field, so then you have a monster that could potentially have 3 detach costs for the play, or you can even go the additional route and have this card by using your M7, using M7 to gain an additional add back or bounce return on the field, and then using the Constellar Tellarknights to overlay into the Pleiades after the 1 detach and still have the 3 material while you have the additional detach off of your M7 as well. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. Like I said, I didn't want the Constellars to feel left out, since a lot of people seem to be focusing on the Tellarknights for their updates with all the new support from Cyberstorm Access. But you can still have a lot of fun with the Constellars as well. So with it being the main focus for the new support we got from this video, I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira, Twig out.